Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. And today's episode, we're talking about everybody's favorite topic, marketing. Need I say more? Everybody seems to be a marketing guru, but no, today we have a very special marketing expert with us, Anne Laffin, and she specializes in marketing for startups. Very unique sector of the market. So I'm curious to see what she has to say. But Anne, thank you for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
So tell me, we have to just get this on the table. I said what I said. Everybody thinks they're marketing experts. How many marketing gurus out there just make you want to shake your head?
A lot of them, but it's not usually the actual marketing gurus. It's the people in companies that think they're marketing gurus that are. It's painful. I won't lie. There are times that it really is truly painful. Everyone's got a social media account. Everybody's got an aunt or uncle or somebody that thinks you should be doing something. Like it gets messy.
Yes, always fun and amazing to hear everybody's tips. So let's try not to do that today. I know you're not going to do that.
No.
But hey, we're going to make fun of those people a little bit. Yes.
Sounds
Let's
good.
tell people how to market the right way. I'm curious though. So marketing is obviously very broad. There's a million things you could fit underneath that. What prompted you to specialize in marketing specifically for startups?
So, I mean, I've been in the marketing industry for over 20 years at this point, which is scary. That snuck up really fast. But the last 7 or so have been spent in the startup space. And startups provide a very unique challenge. It's very fast paced. It's pretty sloppy. There's a lot of room for creativity. You know, like it's kind of like in the very early days of a company, everything is being birthed, right? The brand, the messaging, the strategy, the tactics. So if you like to get messy, get your hands dirty and really get in and shape something, you can do that with an early stage company. It's crazy, but it's fun.
Yeah. So what was your, like the first taste of that? Because it sounds like you weren't doing that for more than the last 7 years or so. So what was the first one like? And what was that aha moment to say, no, this is it. This is where I need to spend my time.
So I was the head of marketing at a early stage financial planning software. I was employee number 6. And at the time, there were 6 of us in this like old IT closet in a very large corporate building. We were all sitting in one room, and it was super collaborative. And I had just left this other job where I literally had a corner office to this like IT closet. And I don't know, there was something about that energy of like, there were days that I was like, why did I do this? But the longer I was there, the more I loved just like it was the collaboration. It was seeing everybody's wins because you could literally see the whole team in the room. And, it was so fast paced, and it was just so nice to, like I kind of said earlier, be able to shape something. I found that very appealing. And I have a little bit of adrenaline junkie in me. So I think that the risk reward factor was big, and I just loved it. And, I was there for 3 years and decided that when I left there, it was time for me to jump into starting my own business. And I just wanted to work with startups and do this for other companies. So that was the first taste of it.
That's interesting to me because after 3 years, did some of that adrenaline wear off and become monotony, and that's why you left?
Yeah. It's very interesting watching the phases of a company. And that's why now I still only work with early stage companies. So what I'm talking about there is like pre-seed, seed, series A, when they're still pretty small and kind of like, I'm going to keep saying a mess, which is probably insulting to some, but a lot of times there are a lot of messes then because you have to move fast. As a company gets bigger, right, has more process in place, has more customers, has more of the answers, of course, some of that newness has to wear off. And the things that were put together with paper clips and bubble gum now have to be put together with steel and nuts and bolts, right? You have to so it is very different as the company starts to get into that next phase of growth. It's not, for me, it's not as exciting anymore. It's not quite as fun. There's still some magic there to be had, but it's those early days that I find most appealing.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's interesting to see how you went through that journey personally. So back on the marketing and messaging side for startups, it is messy. I mean, there's no way around that, right? Like it's you compared it to birthing a baby. I don't know if you specifically said birthing a baby, but you did birthing.
I did say birthing.
Okay. So if for the audience members who have never been around that, it's messy and it's chaotic, and we're not going to describe it in detail. You can go look it up on YouTube. Please don't.
Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, you are trying to build a company, and in many cases, a true startup has the goal of doing many millions, if not billions or more in revenue. So to go from nothing to that is a massive leap. What are you even doing when you come in to help these companies with their marketing?
You have got to lay a foundation. Even, like if you don't build any stability early on, kind of going back to that bubblegum and paperclip idea, at some point the house will fall over. At some point it breaks. So I start with messaging because I truly believe that you could have the best strategy, or you could have a million channels that you're marketing in, but if the messaging is falling flat and doesn't speak to your audience, no one will care. It is not going to resonate. So I start there. And then after that, I look at a strategy of like, okay, look, we have 3 people on the team. We have $1 million total for the business to spend, or whatever it is, right? I look at resources and I say, what can we do that's going to make an impact the fastest with the resources that we have? And so, frequently that turns into content, turns into social, it turns into thought leadership with your founder, but it's key that you have some kind of tangible, bite-sized plan. Love that, because that's really applicable here, that you can get into place and move quickly and measure quickly.
Yeah, which is speed is everything in that world. I'm curious about the messaging piece. You mentioned that first, and how are you putting messages out, testing them? Because I assume that's part of the process too, is that quick testing and iteration on that. What does that process look like for you?
So, I mean, I start with I don't know if you've heard of Simon Sinek, but the whole start with why. I am a firm believer that the why is actually what does set your company apart. So I like having a strong why message at the foundation. Obviously, you need to clarify what and who and how and all of those things. And we need to have very clear statements that everyone is bought in on and agreed upon. Once you have those things, again, early days, you're not going to go hire a large market research company to do your research for you. That's just not going to be in the cards. What you can do is every sales call you have, test out that messaging for a while and see how it resonates. When you're running social, see what's the interaction with that. When you are seeing customers out in public, ask them. Like in those early days, that research and that testing looks a lot like talking to customers and getting real in-person feedback all the time. I definitely am a fan of, you can certainly run, surveys on your own that are pretty cheap and, kind of on the fly. And you can definitely do that and should. But I think that feedback loop is almost always running in the early days so that you are constant. It's like one big constant test. That's not to say you are making changes constantly, but you should be gathering feedback constantly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, which is interesting because when you're more established and you have a marketing strategy, like you said, you evolve into, and a budget and all this stuff, and more of a consistent plan and approach.
Yeah,
that's when the measurement and the KPIs and stuff are really, really important. I'm almost curious to hear your take on how important is that in the beginning, establishing those KPIs, or is it really just about gathering data, making quick decisions, and continuing to test?
So I hope this answers your question the way I answer this. Something that I've started implementing with clients is just this idea of like, what's the North Star right now? Because I've run into an issue where if we're trying to solve for too many KPIs, too many metrics, it doesn't work out really well because no one actually really knows what we're trying to accomplish. So trying to get everybody marching towards a North Star and then implementing a small marketing plan. I started making these things called micro plans. Every month we do a lead generating tactic and a retention tactic with one very simple metric in mind that we can track, and that's leading to the North Star. Usually it's a revenue goal or something like that, but it's very clean cut. There's not a lot of gray in it, and it allows us to, we measure quickly, and it's usually, again, like one metric, and it allows us to make changes quickly. So I hope that answers what you're getting, right? Like I think it's important to have metrics, but not so many that are set in stone, because most likely they're going to change.
Yeah, it does. And I was curious because I was working with a client the other day, and it's a brand new venture, and there was a lot of emphasis on what are we measuring. And I was like, I don't care. Now we do fractional COO consulting, so different sort of outlook on the business. But I was like, I don't care, because there's not enough data to really measure it against. So, like, yes, we're collecting it for sure. We are going to measure, but I'm not going to put emphasis on, are we hitting our numbers? Are we hitting our objectives? Like, no, it's time to just go and execute and then measure. So I was curious to hear your take on that for marketing.
Yeah. I mean, so, I think that's spot on.
Awesome. I got the validation. Fantastic. I didn't look like an idiot. Perfect. But no, so I want to kind of shift over, because we're talking about startups, but I think, as I mentioned to you before we started recording, the audience of this show is in that, I call it the 7-figure sticking point, where the founder, the owner, is in charge of the business, and it tends to get stuck there, because that's where we have to start building a business structure and not just relying on the owner to make decisions and be the bottleneck. Sorry to say it, but the bottleneck of moving the business forward. How much of this applies to that sort of scenario where, maybe you've been in this rut for, could be months, could be years, could be decades. What would you do in that scenario going into that business? Would you approach it the same way for an established business?
Yeah. I mean, because there's a lot of similarities there, just with founders of early stage companies often are very tied to that business. And they were often the one that was only doing all the things, wearing all the hats. It's their baby, and they can't get out of their own way. And that frequently really prohibits them from growing properly. And so if you're in this business, or businesses that you're discussing where they're kind of like flatlining, I suspect, that's the scenario that they're also in, where they have really got in their own way and can't kind of relinquish some of the control to allow their teams around them, hopefully that they have in place, to help come up with new ideas or new ways to tackle the problem. I think when I see stagnant numbers, I know everyone hates the term audit. I kind of do too. But to me, that's like the time when I just want to like get under the hood and be like, what's actually going on? Like, what are we really doing right now to make changes, to change this stagnation that we have? And if you as a founder are comfortable leaning on your team to say, like, we're going to come up with a plan together, like, again, North Star goal. Now I need all my heads of departments to come back and wow me with whatever it is that we're going to do. So I guess maybe the long and the short of it here is, like, there comes a point when that head of the business has got to lean on their team and get out of their way, like get out of their own way. It's just, I think it's really scary for them, but I really feel like strongly that is the only way to get to growth.
Just to be clear, Anne said it, not me.
I'm happy to say it louder.
Hey, from the rooftops.
Yeah.
I love it. No, it's so true. In that audit, though, I'm curious, what are you looking for? Is that just an evaluation of what's going on, what's working, what's not? Is there anything in particular, especially with an established business, you really want to understand?
Well, I mean, I would want to know, first of all, like, what kind of process just in general is in place for each department. I'm going to give you an example here of, like, companies I work with frequently, they're implementing some type of marketing automation and CRM. They've got an operational arm to it. They've got, customer service is built in. Is there something in place, depending on the business, where you can kind of track and see what is truly happening end to end with the business? That's a good spot or good place to start, to be like, is there a way for us to actually know what's going on? And to be clear, I'm not an operational expert by any means, but yeah, right. But there are people that are, but I like that plays into marketing too, right? I need to know what's happening elsewhere in the business for me to make good decisions about marketing. And then from a marketing standpoint, I'm going to go back to messaging, because like, do we know who our audience is? Even with an established business, are we still going after the right audience? And or are there maybe other audiences we could go after? Like if we've hit stagnation, that's a great place to start messaging, audience. And then of course it's creativity. What are some new, like once you get some of the maybe like the broken pieces that are likely happening, it's time to get creative. So that's how I would approach that audit.
I love it. That makes perfect sense. So once you start to get bored and the company's growing and they're scaling and it's no more startup mode,
Yeah.
what is next? Like what does that actually look like from going from early stage marketing, everything we just talked about, into more of a strategy and consistent execution? Where do you lead people? I know that's kind of where you like to step out, but what is that process to do it the right way?
I mean, I think once again, like those pieces are in place and the business is starting to run a little more smoothly, that's the time to think about hiring an internal, whether it's a CMO or a head of marketing, depending on what they have in place, from the get-go, so that hopefully it's kind of this like a passing of the baton of like, you're ready now, like flourish. But that is kind of how I see my role, is like I like to step into the mess and the chaos in the beginning and hopefully can calm some of that, so that there is a better handoff to give to someone that is hopefully a little more, more senior, more ready to be in-house and take over a team and grow a team. Certainly by the time you get to a Series B, anyone that's providing you funding is definitely going to want to see that. They're going to want to see that stability. They're going to want to see that plan. So having someone that can help with that handoff is huge. And I can definitely help with the hiring process, or just even, again, being a sounding board can be helpful.
Yeah, I love it. I love the whole process. And this was so much packed into a little episode, but I really do appreciate it. I think a lot of people, this is a sticking point for a lot of people, whether you're in business or whether you're a startup. This is a big deal to get right too, because if nobody knows you exist, nobody knows you exist.
Nope. That's true. Very true.
I love it. So where should the audience go to learn more about you and what you have going on?
You can find me at finmarketingm.com, or absolutely on LinkedIn as well, because I spend a lot of time there.
I love it. So all of that is going to be down in the show notes below for wherever you're watching and listening. Go check it out. And I can't let you go, though, without the last final question.
You got it.
My personal favorite question, and it's actually a question from you to the listener. So we're talking about marketing, messaging, specifically for startups, but also for people who are a little stuck in their business.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, if you were to go into their business, or if you were to be consulting with them and give them a question to chew on, if you will, what would that question be that you want them to ask themselves until they get a powerful answer that moves them forward?
How do you want your product or service to make an impact on your customers?
Ooh, that's a good question. I like that one.
All right.
We'll take it. Answer accepted.
That's a key one.
Thank you so much for being here.
You got it. It was great being here. Thank you for having me.
For those of you watching and listening, wherever you are, your instructions are in the show notes down below. Go check it out. All of Anne's resources. Go connect with her on LinkedIn, and also subscribe. Make sure you come back. I hope you liked the episode. We love putting these out 5 days a week to help you grow your business and, more importantly, grow a more harmonious business and life. We'll see you on tomorrow's episode. Thanks for being here.